Welcome, welcome, welcome. Y'all, listen here. I don't believe in giving the devil not a lick of credit, so I ain't even gonna do it. But as you can see, we are about 30 minutes delayed on the show, but that's all right because we have a powerful, powerful show this evening. And so I think y'all could give me, a little bit of grace on 30 minutes and rock with us all the way out for this next hour. So, not to belabor, we're going to get this thing going. We have an amazingly beautiful, beautiful woman. Her name is Yolanda Hightower. She is a registered nurse by trade, but she is a warrior. She has fought forward. And so she is joining us this evening to be able to share her story, but not only just sharing her story, she is here to try to encourage and uplift someone else that might be able to recognize themselves in the words that she shares this evening. So, I am about to bring to the stage Miss Yolanda Hightower. Hey, Yolanda. Uh-oh. Can we hear you? Can we hear you? Uh-oh. Let's see. All right, Yolanda, I'm gonna have you go out and come back in, okay? We're gonna go have you go out and then come back in, okay? All right, y'all. Listen, again, this technology, it just has a mind of its own. It does what it wants to do. But again, we are going to persevere. We are going to push through. So, as we wait for Yolanda to get reconnected, she's actually coming from the DC area. And so, it's nothing but a lot of folly and foolishness out there in DC. And I think it might be trying to impede and obstruct. So, we're going to try this thing again. She has joined us. Yolanda, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but you sounded robotic again.
Oh no, oh no. Well, we're gonna try to push through, right? We're gonna try to get
Okay.
this thing going. Our guests are very, very eager to hear from you this evening. Um, it was so interesting, Yolanda, when I had posted the marketing material over on social media. All of the different people. Oh no, she's got it's that Sky Zone. She says that she's not too far from the downtown capital area in DC. So we're gonna try this again. Can you hear me, Yolanda?
I can hear you.
You can. Okay, good. So we're gonna keep
Yeah,
trying to
it kicked me all the way out again.
it did. It
Yeah.
sounds. I told you you must have a powerful story to share this evening. It has to be because something is trying to obstruct the words and the testimony that you have this evening from reaching the ears of the people that needs to hear it. So we're gonna try to push through yet again.
Okay.
But again, I just welcome you. I'm super excited. I was sharing that, when I put up the marketing materials that I had gotten a couple of calls from individuals that were like, hey, Yolanda, I went to school with her. She's an amazing person. And then I got someone who reached out and they said, you know, my grandmother and her mother or grandmother, one or the other, were best friends. So again, everyone seemed to be so delighted in seeing you come onto the show. And there is, oh no, no, y'all. I'm telling y'all, she must have a powerful story. And I don't know. Let's see. Put in the chat if you all think that maybe we should attempt this on a different day or do we keep pushing? I'm the type of person that's going to keep pushing because I don't believe in giving up, right? I don't believe in it. You
I
love
don't
it.
either.
Yeah, I think that's a part of your testimony, ain't it?
I'm
Pushing.
like, my Wi Fi signal is strong. Like, I got not even a dip in my bars.
Wow, wow. Yeah, yeah. Something is working, right? I don't know if it's out there in the ether now. I don't know. But we are going to continue to move forward. I think that's the strength of black women, ain't
Yep.
it?
It's been what 40 for almost 44 minutes of the of it acting crazy.
Yeah, yeah, this is just wild. This is really wild. But again, we are going to push forward and see if we can make it on through. So, again, not to belabor, definitely excited for you to be on the show this evening. Again, to share your story and your testimony. But I want to kind of start from the beginning. When you seen that I posted on Facebook that I was starting the show and the show title being Conversations, I talked about in this little reel that I did, kind of right, the intent of the show was to take a deep dive and a look into exactly what may have framed how one saw themselves and how potentially it could have impeded their functional, right, abilities throughout their lives because of something that somebody said, somebody did, right? Or even just the fear of observing what others may have done to someone else and how that could have infected them. Not affected, infected them almost to the point of a disease, right? And so, why did you feel so compelled to want to reach out and say, "Hey, I want to come on the show and share"?
I think because each of us have something unique about everything we went through,
Mhm.
and that there are still people who have not grasped onto the need to do the work to work through the obstacles.
Okay.
Um, so often, I think we tend to hold back sharing the things we went through because one, it requires us to be vulnerable. Two, it requires us to actually be willing to say, put my dirt out there.
Yeah.
When you put your dirt out there, you're saying, okay, I'm open for everyone to see. And you put yourself in a place where you become vulnerable. But at the same time, I believe that everything we went through is a learning experience. Good,
Yeah.
bad, ugly, and different. You learn something from it. And so if there's something that I've gone through that could help somebody
Yeah.
that is still going through, then I feel like I have an obligation to share that.
Wow. Wow.
Because I think for so long in my life, I lived in a state of, uh, I'll call it a fraudulent state or imposter state. People
Hmm.
saw, people see me, you're happy, you're smiling, but inside it was turmoil and hell, but you never let anybody know because you didn't talk about the things that were going on. You
Yeah.
didn't dare speak about the negative. There was no open forum. It was hush, hush. No, we don't want to talk about that. Or, people look at it as though you're just negative. They don't want to hear the negativity. They want peaches and cream and everything to be rosy. But
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
reality, if people had stopped and shared their stories with me, I think it would have helped me to grow a little differently. It would have helped me learn
Wow.
how to walk a little differently. It would have made it so that I could understand and accept and deal with the trauma differently.
Wow.
Um, People never want to talk about trauma. They
Yeah.
only want you to talk about the good things, but nobody wants to deal with the trauma. Nobody wants to, you think about the words we used to say when back in the 70s and 80s, sticks and stones may break our bones, but words they'll never hurt you. That's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah. Oh, from the
Because the
pits of
scars
hell.
of my past have, the physical scars are gone. But
Yeah.
I still remember every negative word that was said to me by somebody.
Yeah. Absolutely. It
And
deeply
some of these
impacts.
some of these words were said to me when I was 6, 7, 10. I'm 61 years old. If I can still remember vividly and hear the words vividly, imagine what someone else did, and I've learned how to deal with it and understand that everyone had an issue and
Yeah.
everyone has a problem, but it's
Yeah.
how you deal with it. And so that when people are, I'm sorry, when
No, it's
people
okay.
are talking to you and saying stuff to you, the term hurt people,
Yeah.
I've lived through that where hurt people. And unfortunately, I was a victim of hurt. And sometimes I turned around and hurt. But it took me years of going through depression, through anxiety, through fear of rejection, fear of isolation, you know, to getting to the point where I became overcompensating. I became a people pleaser. Oh, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I got to be there for everybody. I'm everybody else's cheerleader, but nobody else was mine. But it was just compensation. You know,
Yeah.
you get involved with stuff, you do stuff just because you want to be, you don't want to sit still, because in the moments of stillness and idleness, you get a chance to think about the hurt and the pain.
Yeah.
What I can say is that when I was diagnosed with my illness
Mm-hmm.
and I had time to think and COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
you're forced to sit home and deal with your pain. And it
Yeah.
was then that
Yeah.
I realized I had to start doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the pressures of COVID kind of pushed a lot of individuals into the space of having to sit, right, with the pain that they may have had to endure, right? Maybe in their present or even from their past. But either way, like you said, that moment of I often call it incarceration, where we were secluded one from another and relegated to, the four walls of our home or so. It really did exacerbate in some people a mental health crises or concern, but for others, it brought about some healing and some clarity because they finally had time to sit, right? They finally had a moment that they were able to be with self and really begin to learn who they were and what may have inflicted, right, the pain of their today. So what I would love for us to be able to do, Yolanda, is just have you take us a little back. Let's go back. You mentioned some things about, wishing that, someone would have shared with you what certain circumstances may have looked like and maybe how to have dealt with them a little better. And maybe that would have aided you, but maybe not, right? Because that's someone's individual story. And depending on when they were able to share it with you, a lot of times in our youth, we're unable to really hear past our pain. So I want for you to kind of take us back. When we look at the apple, right? I often say there's a little worm that starts to getting in there and beginning the erosion of that apple. So I want for you to talk, and I'm going to bring this picture up to the stage of this beautiful, beautiful little girl. The beautiful little Yolanda. Take us back. You shared this picture. Why was this picture important to the story when you said, so much had happened?
When I look at that picture, that's that one picture where the innocence that I know, that the security, the innocence, the safety, I
Mm,
was safe in
mm,
that realm. I was safe, you know, we were with my grandmother and my mom, and we it was a time where I was secure. I didn't have any worries, and the trials of life had not started to impede.
mm.
Um, I still remember things from that era that I was 4 years old there.
Okay.
And I remember that. I remember four, but after age four, I don't remember anything again until I hit 9 years old.
Wow. Okay.
That time frame was blocked out due to issues in life. You know, the molestation started during that time. So from the age of 5 to 9, I don't remember. I can't tell you who the first person was.
Wow. Wow.
But I can tell you that generation that we grew up in the 70s, we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have cable TV.
Right.
You know, you couldn't even curse on television. But at
Absolutely.
5 years old, I knew what sex was.
Wow. Now that's powerful. That's powerful because
Um,
you're right. That wasn't something that was just open, right? For a young
right,
child to be able to receive and to shape and envision unless it happened direct. Wow.
right. So, from the age of 5 to 9, the what I can say is that, and what I had to, I had to ask my therapist about, why can't I remember anything during that time frame? I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. Um, and she says, because the pain is too much for me to bear, that God decided that I can't. There's some pain and some things that you just should not remember. And
Yeah.
I think that's that period of time that was scrubbed away from my memory, so that it was a protective measure. But what I can tell you is that from 9 years old until I was 15, I
Mm-hmm.
do know who they were. And I won't, I figured the people's reputation at this point, I'm not necessarily worried about the reputation because some of them are dead and gone.
Yeah.
Um, I just think that it's because of their families. I will not say their name.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
some of these were people that were trusted individuals around us
Yeah.
who would, I can remember, and I won't say whose location I was at when this happened,
Yeah.
but I can
Yeah.
remember being 11 years old, upstairs asleep, and waking up to an individual on top of me.
Wow.
Um, and so I tell people I never knew what it was really like to have innocence. I
Yeah.
never knew what it was like to actually ever be free. And, I think the worst part was that I never had a chance to decide that I wanted to give up my own virginity.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was
Choice.
stolen.
Yeah, choice was taken. Choice was taken in that moment. And I don't think that, individuals that perpetrate, right, onto children, they're very selfish, right? This is a self serving sort of act. It is about the pleasure of them and not looking at how it impacts further, right? Years and years and years, right? Just like we're saying about the words that remain. The
Hmm.
same with certain actions that, one may encounter, they too live on, right? And you have to
Yep.
grapple with the meaning of that. Um, I share with everyone, and I always try to put, somewhat of a disclaimer out here is yes, I'm a clinical therapist, but my show is not about doing therapy. What the show is truly about is being able to shine a light on some of the things that are of a great detriment to society,
Yes.
to humanity. And we think that it is okay to hide and sweep things up underneath the rug when it's not. It's
Not at
not.
all. You do more damage. The damage occurs in that underlying silence, that you don't say anything, you don't tell anybody.
Yeah,
We keep that hidden under our covers, and but it doesn't allow you an opportunity to heal. It doesn't allow you the opportunity to grow, and it
yeah,
doesn't make the person that's doing it, that's perpetrating this, it doesn't make them stop.
yeah, yeah,
It only says that you're not safe even in your around your own people, because I can still get to you, because nobody's going to believe you, because we don't talk about that.
yeah,
We
yeah.
don't mention that.
And that
And
is,
what I can't,
yeah. Go
I,
ahead.
I think the big thing is that growing up as a, first of all, growing up in the 70s where it wasn't cool to look like me.
So what do you
You
mean?
know,
Let's we have to really sit with that. What do you mean when you say it wasn't cool to look like you? You are a beautiful woman. Where are you going with that?
but you grew up during the 70s when everybody was trying to look like, and I use this word loosely, colonizers. We needed
Okay,
straight hair. We
that's real.
needed to be light skinned. We needed our noses to be smaller. We needed our lips to be thinner.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
weren't supposed to be, if you looked like you came from Africa in any kind of way, your skin was dark, you weren't pretty, you weren't accepted. Did
yeah.
nobody want to go out with the dark skinned black girl because her hair's shorter, her face, she's darker than most of the other girls, and she looks the part of her ancestry. So I never grew up saying or believing that I was pretty. Matter of fact, I grew up to the point where I didn't even want to look in the mirror because nobody ever validated that I looked beautiful. I can't
Wow,
remember ever growing up hearing those words.
wow, wow.
No one ever said, "You're beautiful." It took me to have to go through and do my own work to say, you know what? I am beautiful. I am healthy. I am strong. And nobody can take that away from me. My theory has now become let them talk,
Mhm,
let
mhm,
them speak, let them do whatever they want to, but let them try to come at me back in a backwards way. And unfortunately, you're going to get your feelings hurt because
mhm,
now I don't feel the need to protect others who may somehow or another want to diminish my value or my worth. No longer living in that imposter stage because I know who I am.
mhm, mhm,
It took, like I said, it took me from 2020 until now to do that hard work. I had to go, and one of the things I had to learn to do every day for it started off being something to develop a habit. Every day, I challenged myself to go look in the mirror and say something that I liked about myself that was beautiful.
wow,
You
wow.
know, I started by saying, you know what? I love your dark skin.
Yeah,
I think when that song Brown Skin came out, it's something about your
mhm,
brown skin.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know where yours begin and I don't know where mine ends. You
yeah.
know, there are people who pay to go get tan so they can be darker. So, it took me to understand if Caucasian people are going to the tanning booth so they can get darker skin, what's wrong with my
Mhm.
skin?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What's wrong with my skin? Or why did someone have to belittle my skin color? Was it because it's truly something wrong with me, or is there something wrong with them? Because
Mm,
anytime we have to, as individuals, tear somebody else down, it's
yeah,
definitely something wrong with you because there's an inadequacy, something lying deep within you that you didn't fix.
yeah,
There's an
yeah.
insecurity in you that you didn't fix. And it took me to have to do that. It took me to have to do that work to understand that one, I'm not responsible for
Mhm.
the damage that occurred to me. And for years, I had that guilt inside of me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't worthy because I was damaged goods. I
Yeah.
wasn't supposed to do anything because I'm damaged goods. So when I didn't fulfill something, what didn't matter because you're damaged goods anyway.
Now let me
Nobody
stop
cared
you there.
anyway.
Let me kind of, let's look at this thing. Because when we start looking at people's core negative beliefs of self, was it literal words that was said to you, Yolanda, you are damaged goods? Or was it the fact that over time, based upon different encounters, right? Then you began to kind of create this narrative or this mantra that you had begun to live by. Was it
Yep.
It could be a both and situation, right? But I'm just kind of wondering, was it words that were said directly to you? Because I know, based upon, right, the work that I've done, that different individuals may say that there's a grooming process. And sometimes out
Mhm.
of the grooming, after they've gotten you to the place where you are trusting those individuals, let's say, then it flips. Like they flip the script on you, and now they're saying all manner of evil towards you. So, were these words that were said, or were these feelings that you began?
So it was words, it was actions, it
Okay,
was inaction.
okay,
And so the damaged goods became in that, oh, when you go through trauma, whether it's verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, you tend to somewhere or another begin to react in a negative way, in a negative tone. Whether if it was physical abuse, you
yeah,
cower when somebody comes at you.
mm,
When there's verbal abuse, you start spewing out negativity towards others, and you take that and you take it down deep. For instance, there was an individual who told me, because I did not want to go outside and sit, I didn't want to go outside and play with the teenage boys and with some of the girls around.
mm-hmm,
Um, that because I was sitting in the room and there were men in the room, but I wasn't talking to the men. I was sitting in a corner. But because I was sitting in that area by myself, that I wasn't going to be nothing but a tramp when I grow up.
mm. Now,
Um,
was this around this age? The picture that you shared with me here?
yes.
Okay. And so
That's
how
an
old were
age
you?
where I was 13.
Okay. Okay.
And it was a point where I had gotten sick and all of my hair fell out.
Okay.
And that was the first time. And I told people I understand that whenever I got ill, the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that leaves is my hair. And
Yeah.
so um I I react by scratching. I have scratch, you know, I have
Mm-hmm.
areas where I scratch, whether it's the front of my head, in the middle of my head, I just scratch until I feel soothed and comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and it was also at that age that I realized that teenage boys and teenage girls can be cruel.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And I was the brunt because I grew up at a point where, yes, my mother, she was giving and caring and loving and sharing, but she
Mhm.
also did not take the time to provide me with the necessary counseling and with the necessary means and the training to become a young woman and to know her worth and to know that she had value. So we didn't always have the best clothes. We were poor.
Yeah.
We lived in the projects. So you wore hand-me-downs, you wore shoes. There were times when, we didn't have food.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't always have soap to wash your body, and so you were forced to go to school, whether
Yeah.
your clothes were dirty or clean or your body was clean, and people talked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're forced as a young girl to say, why am I not enough?
Yeah.
Or why am I always being rejected? So this whole continuum that we go through with the cycle of verbal abuse, with molestation, and now you add in rejection.
Yeah.
And in that realm of rejection, you start believing, I'm not enough. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm not going to be good enough that somebody's going to want to take me over, or I'm not going to be good enough that I'm going to have friends that I can go over their house and spend the night, or I must not be good enough because my mother's not doing the things that everybody else's mother doing, but not, realizing that at that age you don't understand that. But
Right.
it took me to grow up and have my own child to understand that people parent where they know how to parent. And
Absolutely.
it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people, but
Yeah.
somewhere in their own lives, they stopped.
Yeah. Yeah.
They stopped. They stopped due to their own traumas, due to their own abuses, to their own issues.
Yeah.
And but yet they continued to go, and they got older and they functioned as adults, and they possessed things in life, or
Yeah.
they projected in life those things that they did not know how to necessarily do and handle.
Yeah.
Um, whether it's, I'm gonna go, I'm a partier, or I'm not going to, I'm going to do what I need to do, or, I'm not going to put my children, not that they're putting you in harm's way, but they don't have the skills necessary to guide you correctly.
Yeah.
And, my mother's biggest thing was that she always told us when something was wrong, just pray about it, God will handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she was, I can tell you that there were times in our lives where, when we was younger, yes, she did party. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I also tell people my mom went through tragic situations, and guess what? You didn't get counseling back then.
Look, many of our families aren't getting counseling now because I mean, we have to be honest. We're going to pass down the information from one generation to generation, right? Whether it is
Right,
going to be useful information we're going to pass down, whether it's going to be our fears that we pass down. I'll never forget, Yolanda, when I was about to give birth to my oldest daughter, and my mother was in the birthing room with me, and I was about to get an epidural, and she's like, "Oh no, are you about to do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, absolutely." She's like, "No, you don't." Right. And so it was her fear that was
right,
being passed on. And I had to, in that moment, look at realistically whether or not her fears needed to be right a part of my reality.
right.
And
Um,
so we miss out on that in the black family, right? We do.
right. I realize that, and you think, most people that grew up in Inkster knew that my mother lost a son tragically.
Yeah.
Um, he was kidnapped, molested, and
Mm-hmm.
murdered.
Yeah.
And what I can tell people was, I know that at that point, my mother's world shut down, and
Yeah.
she started going through the motions of life. She
Yeah.
tried to cope with life. Um, and because she was not able to get what she needed, and no one helped her through her
Yeah.
grief compounded over years.
Yeah.
And so what I realized was that when I say she parented where she knew how to parent, my mother was a beautiful person. I don't want
Hmm.
anybody to think that she was not,
Yeah.
but she was not always able to understand what it was that we needed to make us successful individuals. Like, it wasn't go to school so you can go to college and you can get a good job and you can get a career. It was go to
Hmm.
school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you go to school, but the need to get good grades
Hmm.
was not instilled. Now, my grades weren't horrible because I'm blessed to have that type of functioning mentally, where I'm able to remember things without studying.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I said, what would have happened if I would have been in an environment that was more nurturing, where I came home from school and there was food to eat, my
Yeah.
clothes were washed, you
Yeah.
know, or I had somebody to sit down with me and talk to me about the values of life. But
Yeah.
what I can say, that with every pitfall,
Yeah.
God creates an open door. There's always a scoop out. What my mother could not do for me,
Yeah.
God put other women in my life that could.
Yeah.
And I tell people my rocks, I had mm, rocks around me, that people that build me up. And I thank God, because my mother taught me what it means to have grace,
Yeah.
to be loving. you know, I had, I can name some names. I had Sheila Fredericks, or Sheila Woods, who was at the Malcolm X, who took me under her wings and started guiding me into, okay, let's work on your hygiene. Let's work on getting you to feel like a woman. And
Yeah.
then, I had people like, and she's still alive today, Wilby Cobb, who used to live across the street from us on Walnut. I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling Irene, who had a daughter that I played with. And she started taking me to church, and she helped me to understand what it means to love God,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think of other people who came in, I used to call her my mom. Her name was Darlene Mungo. And I spent from 13 years on till I was like in my late 20s. I
Yeah.
was always around her because she taught me what it means to have, again, to have grace, to be modest, to be understanding what it means to be a lady, how to cook, how to clean. I had Rochelle Rose, I had Mary Price,
You know what
I
it
had
sounds
Vera
like, Yolanda?
McGregor.
You had a
I had a
village.
village. I
There
had
you
a
go.
village.
There you
And
go.
that village helped shape me. And they said, you're not going to be ordinary,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it took me, while they helped me to understand all that stuff, it still wasn't enough, because I still felt like damaged goods, because
Mm,
I was never able to heal from the
yeah.
traumas,
So let me
you
ask you
know.
this. Let me ask you this, Yolanda, because we see in society right now, definitely in urban areas, there is this promotion of mentoring, right? Like that is
Yes.
our go-to. Instead of really saying, like, yeah, we're gonna go, I often say we can pay and pray, right? We gonna go to church, we're gonna get us a therapist. We kind of exclude the therapy and we replace that
Hmm.
with a mentor. What are your thoughts on that as kind of like the it seems like the catch-all basin, right? Like the safety net. Like
Hmm.
how do you see mentoring? I know you had a village, but how do you see mentoring today as the answer to a lot of our children who are maybe not directly with the same circumstances, but they're going through a lot of trauma, right?
I think, how do I say this? I had a village, but
Mm-hmm.
I still didn't, I don't, and my village, yes, they were my mentors, but my
Mm-hmm.
village couldn't help me through my problems. My village couldn't help me understand, or should I say, my village didn't know about my
Mm-hmm.
sexual abuse, because we
Mm.
didn't talk about that. We talked about what it means to be a Christian young lady. We talked about what it means to be a strong Black woman. We never talked about trauma.
Wow.
Um,
Was this a
that
part of
was
your
one.
village? Was
This
the
is a part of my village.
NCCOC youth group your village?
That's my village.
Wow.
That's me on the end singing.
Okay.
We dressed modestly. We covered up because we were taught that's how you do it. But I can tell you something about each of those people standing up there and how they influenced me.
Mm.
We're all teenagers, but everybody in there played a role in some way or another, positive or negative, into who I became. Um, but that was my family. That became my protective family when I wanted some place to escape from the reality of my world that I lived in on a daily basis. That youth group became my family, because we would hang out together. We would go to movies together. We saw each other on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursdays. Sometimes we saw each other on Saturdays. So
Mhm.
when I needed to escape from my home life world, I can go to the church.
So
But
how did the church help to shape how you begin to see yourself? Yes, you could escape, right? You could get away, you could have some fun, you can block out some things. But how did they begin to help shape from that negative feeling of rejection, that negative feeling of how did you phrase it? Oh, wow. You had made reference to how you had begun to feel about yourself. Damaged goods, right? How
damaged goods.
yeah, how did they help to reframe or did they? Did the church help with that?
They did. But again, it's they helped, but until you go to the core, you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna always have those underlying, because you can suppress it. Now, people didn't know what was going on because I suppressed it. I was on the cheerleading team in high school. I was in the band. I was on drill teams. I did everything and I looked happy. Why? Because the village taught me how to be happy, because it provided me a safety net.
Mm.
It provided me an outlet. It got me counseling, whether it was, I don't know how to do this. Okay, let me show you.
Mm.
Or, someone to speak words into you, you're beautiful, you're loving, you're a kind-hearted individual. You know, there were things that they're said,
Did you
now
believe them? Did you believe them when they said it? Because I know I've worked with some youth before, and I one little boy, he was the cutest little thing, and I was like, he would continually say, "I'm bad." I said, "No, honey, you're not bad." He said, "Yes, I am. I am bad," and that was because of those words. It
that he
resonated
would
with
hurt.
him. Yeah, it resonated.
So
He
what
wasn't
I
able
can
to walk
say
away
is I believed it when I was with them.
from that. Okay.
I believed it when I was with them, because when I was with them, I wasn't damaged goods. Why? Because I was safe. I didn't have to act out. I didn't have to hide behind the damage. But
Mm-hmm.
what I didn't do, what nobody was able to help me do, was go down deep into the core of my existence and change that thought process to reframe the
Yeah.
entire process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they couldn't help me not to own the damage. They couldn't help me not to own the stolen innocence.
My.
They couldn't help me not to own the you're black and you're ugly, you're nappy headed, nobody protected you.
Mm.
So you felt tossed to the side because the adults in your life didn't protect you.
So, do you feel
So
that if you shared that, if you had shared with them what occurred, right? We always talk about being honest and going to a trusted individual. If you would have felt safe enough and trusted the individuals in church enough, do you feel that you could have taken that mask of smiling off and been vulnerable and gotten the help that you needed at that time?
so here's the thing. You live in two different worlds. My
Mhm.
mother didn't go to church with me.
Okay. Okay.
So my fear, you think about, that was that beginning of the protective service era, the
Right.
70s and 80s. My biggest fear was that I revealed something that was occurring to me and they took me away from my mother. Because
Yeah.
the one thing that I wanted more than everything in the world was her nurturing.
Yeah.
But I could never get nurtured in the way that I needed to be nurtured because she didn't know how.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, she didn't know that each of her children needed something different. And that while, yes, I was smarter than the average ones,
Yeah.
that wasn't, I needed something more. I needed those hugs. I needed somebody to say, you're beautiful. I needed to hear the words, I love you. Because guess what happened to Yolanda when she became 18 years old?
Is this
She
around
picked
here?
up some, Oh no, this was 2020
Okay.
as I
Oh,
started
okay.
doing the work.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna remove this one. Keep telling us about 18. What happened at 18?
At 18, Yolanda's boyfriend was then an abusive person
Mm-hmm.
who was warm one minute but abusive the next. But you didn't want to go back because you didn't want the rejection again. So you start looking for love in all the wrong places because guess what? Love hurted because
Mm.
from a young child you learned that people say they hurt you and they love you. So the people that were hurting me were people that some of them that say they loved me.
So now the wires are crossed, right? Like the associations that's being
Right.
made is love equates to some measure of violence, some measure of pain, and that is to be
Yep.
expected.
Right. So you start looking for love in all the wrong places.
Wow.
You start devaluing yourself
Yeah.
because you never believed that you were worthy of anything else. Because nobody told you, even if they did tell you, deep down inside, because you never healed from the traumas, you still believe you're dirty, dusty, ugly, nasty, stinky, all those negative things that
Yeah.
occurred.
Yeah.
And you didn't tell nobody about the abuse because guess what you were told? Nobody's going to believe you anyway.
Wow. Wow.
Because guess what? Why would I be touching you and I got a wife? Why would I be trying to get you to get into my bed with me when I got a wife? I got a girlfriend.
Right.
But
Yeah.
not looking at the fact that, they're grown people, grown men,
Yeah.
you know, and you're 10, 11, 12. The first thing somebody gonna say back then, oh, you fast. That's why it happened.
Absolutely. Oh, fast tail little girls
Yep.
and not looking at, right? Why are you even seeing these types of behaviors?
We
Have
didn't
you
have that. We didn't have cable TV.
listen? So where was it coming from? Wow. I appreciate you, right, elevating that in this conversation. Because I think it is vastly important instead of casting judgment on what we think we see, that we
Mhm.
begin to now start to kind of look a little bit more deeply at what it is that we're seeing.
Right.
Um, yeah,
When I see a little girl and she's, 5, 6, 7, and she's, being what we call fast, my thing is, where your mama at and why ain't she protecting you? Because somebody's messing with you.
yeah, yeah. It's
You
almost like you
know,
can almost recognize it. It sounds like
you
because you
can
see
recognize it.
that resemblance. Wow,
Yep.
wow.
And so what I tell people, I never tear down a young lady. I
Yeah,
always figure out what's making her do what she does because somewhere somebody needs to protect her at all costs
yeah,
because
yeah,
they have value. We just need to tell them where that value is. We need to push up on that value. We need to help them learn to reshape that core. That picture, what you just put up,
I'm
was
gonna put it back on
it
up.
was actually it was actually at the beat. Was it the TV One award show?
Okay.
Um, and I was invited out by somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, "You want me to go?" And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay," but what it taught me was that I look at this picture and I see someone who's changing. I see a metamorphosis occurring.
In what way? For
Um,
the positive or
it was
which way we
positive.
change it? Okay.
It was a metamorphosis for the positive because I took a picture of myself.
Okay. Okay.
I never took pictures of myself.
Yeah.
I ran from the camera because I didn't want anybody to see me because I was ugly.
Wow. Wow.
But here I'm like, I'm smiling and I'm saying to myself, girl, you look good.
I know it. Like you was doing
You
that
look
thing
good in this
the
picture.
other day. I know that's right.
But I started to reshape that core, and it went back to, I had to go back to the very beginning and start talking to that little girl and start
Yeah.
at the beginning telling that little girl, you are enough. You're wonderful, you're beautiful. So you have to go deep down. When I say you have to do the work, it's going to take you spending time with yourself, saying that you're worthy, you're lovable, you're care, somebody can care about you. You don't have to allow somebody to tear you down. You don't have to always go out seeking approval. You are enough. And when you learn that you're enough, you start going down and you start rethinking. It's not my fault that some grown, dusty, but old man decided to steal my innocence. It's not my fault that, and it even wasn't my mother's fault that she went through that hard time in life where she had to learn how to cope and she didn't cope because nobody took her the moment that she buried her son and said, let us spend some time with you and let's heal you. What they did was they put him in the grave and everybody disappeared and she had to learn how to cope with it. And
Wow.
so what did she do? She turned to alcohol,
Yeah. Yeah.
because alcohol, and it took growing up to understand it wasn't just about the drinking. The alcohol numbed the pain.
Absolutely.
I used to wonder why my mother had a habit of doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Every day at a certain time, she went and sat and did nothing but looked out the window for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked somebody one day, I said, why does she sit in the window for hours and just sit there, and you better not pull that shade and close that curtain?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we talk about how we don't heal and the power of needing to change that core,
Mm-hmm.
her core belief stopped that day that my brother came up missing. And she sat in her window looking for him to come up the driveway for hours and hours and hours. She
Yeah.
never healed from that point. So when
Yeah.
I say we have to learn how to go in and do that deep, it took me, again, realizing that, okay, I stopped growing in the sixth grade.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not because I reached not because I had started having my menstrual cycle, but I
Mm-hmm.
stopped growing because, again, we're black, a black community. We didn't get the natural resources. They can trace that my illness that I have now
Yeah.
had already started when I was then, because my body stopped functioning naturally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had to start saying that when I was diagnosed, what I had to start doing from the beginning. Because when I was diagnosed, when I was told that, okay, you now have this disease where your body doesn't absorb glucose.
Okay.
And so, and I'm saying, so again, why me? Why am I the one who I'm the one that was molested. I was the one who had the hair to fall out. I was the one who didn't have the clothes, didn't have this, didn't have that. So all the negative was sitting there, to the point where I got to the point where I no longer wanted to be here.
Mm.
And as strong as people think that I am, the most selfish part of my life, and I call it selfish because I didn't realize it took a lot for me to understand that if I had been successful in taking my life, my daughter's life would never be the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I literally wanted to take myself out. And I literally stopped. I would stop eating. I didn't, I would be in the bed for days on end. I was a functional depressed person. I went to work every day.
Yeah.
I didn't miss work. But when work got over, I came home, I took my clothes off and I covered my head. You know, one time I can tell people that before I moved to DC, which is one of the reasons I knew I had to go, because I needed to get away and start working on me away from my family,
Can we
where
stop
I did.
right there, Yolanda?
Yes,
Sometimes what I'm hearing is we have to begin to focus, and I mean hyper focus, on ourselves to
yes,
maintain ourselves and our sanity, right? We might
yes,
have to separate from those that we love. Doesn't mean you don't love them, but it means that
yes,
potentially the best thing for you to be able to survive and to thrive might simply be that I need to go away. I look, Yolanda,
yes.
Jesus even went away, right? Right. He
He went
went
to
up
the garden alone to
alone.
pray. And
Absolutely.
so, and and it's funny because when I had my daughter, and even as a teenager, when things happened to me, my motto was, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. I remember a time when I had my daughter and I was in school and I was on aid, but I volunteered and I was doing things, and there was an award that they was giving out from the state of Michigan for um people who were on aid, who worked, overcame obstacles to change their lives. And I
Hmm.
remember when I got recognized by the governor, and they had a ceremony at the Inkster, it's the FIA office, whatever it's called now. Social
Yeah. Yeah.
services, what it was back then.
Right.
We called it the ADC office. And when
Absolutely.
one of my minister's wives, Rochelle Rose, who was another one of my rocks,
Hmm.
when she introduced me, because she did the introduction, and the one thing she said, this is a young lady whose motto has always been, this too shall pass. Well, it did pass, but what happened was you put it down, but you picked that baggage back up because you didn't change who you were. You still trying to please everybody else on the outside because this is what's expected.
We
I
all
was
have
in
roles. People shape us
We
and they
have
put us.
roles. I was in the honors class at church,
Yeah.
at school, so it was expected that I was going to go to college and graduate.
Yeah. I get it. Trust me, I do. I so get
You
this.
know,
Yeah.
and so what happened is that when I, fast forward through an abusive relationship, that turned into an abusive marriage, to another marriage, you start looking for love in all the, or you start settling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You settle because you know that you, at the time, you still haven't done the work, so you don't think you're worthy
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
anything better than this, so you settle and say, okay, well, I'm gonna do this because this is the best I can do, when in essence you
Yeah.
sell yourself short. Because again, but you don't know you're selling yourself short because you haven't had an opportunity to do the work. So when we
Listen,
go back to that
Yolanda.
picture,
Which one?
when in the black, so
Okay.
this was 6 months after my diagnosis,
Okay.
6 months after my last attempt at
Okay.
suicide.
Okay.
um but it's also a point where I understand now, when I look back at this picture, I thought I was fat and overweight, but guess what it was? It was my body protecting me, because
Mm.
I wasn't knowing that 6 months after this picture, my weight was going to start dropping.
Wow. Wow.
Um, my cheeks were going to be gone. That fat face was going to be leaving. And
Mm-hmm.
you get to a point where people say, oh, but it looked good on you. It does look good that it's gone, but guess what the fear is behind that? I can never put the weight back on, and I'm a constantly still lose weight. But again, it I had to start from that point working, because again, I felt like once I got that diagnosis, I was damaged again.
Yeah.
I'm
Let me
damaged
ask you
goods.
this. Let me ask you this, Yolanda, as we start to kind of land the plane this evening. First, I want to say thank you so much for, again, sharing such, vulnerable parts to your life. A lot of times individuals shy away, and we, kind of started with that whole thought process of, it's hard, it's painful, and individuals don't oftentimes sign up for pain. That's not the norm. Some people enjoy pain, but it's just kind of not
Hmm.
on average, right? Where you see um a lot of individuals just kind of signing up and saying, hey, pain for me today, please. Um so again, I truly, truly want to say thank you for your vulnerability this evening and sharing with our listening audience. But what I wanted to kind of, zero in on as we begin to kind of close out is, how were you able really to move past, right? The pain, um, the inability to even look at yourself in the mirror, the negative self talk that was happening. How were you able to really move yourself forward to having not the cover up smile, but that real genuine smile, that joy that I hear so often within you? How did you make it to this point? What did you do? And if you could share, and maybe I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. If you can share what you did, and then we're gonna close out on what we call our seed of hope. Okay? So,
Okay.
what did you do to
So
motivate yourself?
the so the first thing that I did was, or that happened was, with my last suicide attempt,
Mm-hmm.
I met a great therapist,
Okay.
Doctor
Yay.
Dr. LaShonda Morris. When I tell
Okay.
you, God put the right people in the right places at the right time.
Yeah.
When I first met her, we clicked.
Okay.
We clicked. I was able to open up to her so freely and just start pouring out. And I poured out and I poured out and I poured out. And she started helping me to learn how to reshape the thinking. And then we found some great books. The first thing was, you have to change that mindset. Um, the first thing she told me, that, and I'd heard it before, but she said it to me differently. As a man thinketh in their heart, so is he.
Yes, yes.
And you think about that from, you always thought about, when you think about a man thinking in his heart, you think about the physical heart is what you think, but then you start thinking about, no, he's talking about the mind. So we started working on eliminating what we call those negative ants. So every time a negative, which is an automatic negative thought, came up, I had to counteract it with something that was positive. So if I said I'm not worthy, I had to think about something that was positive, that I did great, that showed how good I was. And it was actually, right after, again, 2020, 2021, you know, I got the Nightingale Award for nursing for my work as a hospice nurse.
Wow, wow.
And you
Congratulations.
know, and it made me think about, well, if the American Nurses Association say that you're great, you got to be doing something good.
Absolutely.
So, then we start working on, we did a book, The Battlefield of the Mind, by, Joyce Myers, handling your emotions. We did workbooks on dealing with trauma, abuse, and neglect, confronting it,
Yeah.
writing letters to my abusers,
Yeah. Yeah.
letting them know what they did to me, writing letters to the people that, whether it was sexual, verbal, physical, mental, that teenage boy that said something to me that was good. And then looking in the mirror every day and telling myself, you're beautiful,
Yeah.
you're kind, you're caring, speaking words of affirmation over myself. And then we got this book. It's called The Truth Be Told by Dr. Takesha Cox. Black
Mm,
woman,
truth be
black
told.
therapist. And what it does, it was called Bridging Faith and Mental Health on the Path to Healing.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
an easy read, but she breaks it down in such a way that it makes you stop and think. And you're like,
Mm,
wow, I was doing that.
yeah.
But what happened, and I think what the biggest thing was realizing that my Christian faith and allowing that to be, we were taught, growing up, you don't talk, if you depressed,
Yeah.
you full of sin because that's not of God.
Yeah.
Well, you were always taught to suppress that. Well, what she taught me was, okay, you're depressed,
Yeah.
but it's more to your depression than that you're not a Christian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
depression is a direct result of life trauma, and helping me to work through that trauma, every day. And I tell people, is you don't get, it's never gone.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
have to keep working at it every day. So, the biggest thing was for 6 months, I learned to love Yolanda. I love your smile. I love your hair. I love your voice. I love your talents. You this, your dark skin so pretty that it just rolls,
Hmm.
I had to start believing that
Yeah.
I was somebody.
Yeah.
And it started to show. My smile got more genuine. The way I dressed got more genuine.
Yeah.
My willingness to go out and be amongst people got to make me feel more better. And, I tell people, am I totally healed? I don't think you're ever totally healed from trauma.
Yeah.
But what you do learn is that you learn how to identify it and put it where it needs to go.
Yeah.
You don't ever just get to take it and put it on a shelf. But
Yeah.
what you don't have to do is live in that moment continuously. You have to
Absolutely.
learn to get off the cycle. So
Yeah.
instead of you learn that everybody's not a round peg. You might be a square peg, and you
Yeah.
don't have to fit into that round hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And realizing that nothing in my life is a mistake. Everything that happened for a reason, and it shaped you for something else. I think
Mhm.
if I had not been abused, I would not know humility.
Mm.
um if I was not teased, I would learn that words hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it taught me to guard my tongue better.
Mm.
um that because I didn't have a lot growing up, it taught me to love the disproportionate, that homeless person on the street, realizing that they have value, that they have worth, and that not to judge them accordingly, because if it was not but for the grace of God, it could be
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I realized that I was meant to grow from my situation. I was meant
Uh-huh.
to become that strong woman so that I can share and help somebody else through their struggle. So, now as a nurse, I'm going back, and my my degree is now about to be as a mental health nurse practitioner, but also with a, a concentration of family practice so that I
Yeah.
can help the entire person.
I love it.
You
I
know,
love
I
it.
can teach them and help them to grow when I recognize that symptom in that 13-year-old girl who coming in, her mama saying she's fast, helping her
Yeah.
understand, no, she's not fast, something's wrong. Let's get to the core of why she feels she needs to act like this
Yeah, yeah,
and
and
helping them
that's
to
a
heal
powerful thing. That is very powerful, right? Being able to bring the family together and do the work together, and not one,
together.
yeah, not one trying to do it in isolation. And then there's another member of the family that just doesn't understand their process, right? The growth or
Right.
the shedding of what may be hurtful or harmful. So,
And
Yolanda.
then creating what's called safe spaces.
Okay.
A
Yep.
safe space where that whatever said here is
Mm-hmm.
here. It stays here. Nobody's feelings should be hurt from it. You living in your moment of truth and
Yeah.
allowing your moments of truth to permeate and to reshape your mind. Because again, we believe with our minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
We envision with our eyes,
Yeah.
but we damage with our tongues. And
Mm.
not allowing your tongue and your mind and your eyes to deceive you. And always realize, one, God don't make no junk.
So Yolanda, let somebody come at you with some negative words now. How you dealing with it?
Um, First of all, my first thing is like, well, I thank you for your opinion, but
Mm-hmm.
opinions are like, and I use the word depends upon who it is. Um, it's either opinions are like assholes, everybody got one. Some
Mm.
of them work, some of them work, some of them don't, and some of them need an external source. I'm not your external toilet. You don't get to dump your negativity into a bag and push it on me.
Mm.
So I don't accept it. I tell them, well, I thank you for your opinion, but guess what? It don't matter because I'm gonna let them talk. I'm gonna let them speak. I'm gonna let them do whatever they want to, but I'm not going to internalize anybody else's junk.
I know that's right. I know that
I'm
is
not your
right.
dumping ground.
Yeah,
I'm not waste management.
I know
I'm a
that's right.
loving, caring, powerful individual who has a lot left to give. And so I won't accept it.
Listen, I absolutely love it. I agree wholeheartedly. That's the way to go. I don't. And people know me. I'm not gonna sit by idly and just allow for you to say any and everything coming
Yep.
out your mouth towards me. Because guess what? I am a child of God the same way you are. Whether you believe in it or not, the reality is I know who I am, and I know now because I didn't always know neither, Yolanda. I didn't always know, but I know
And
now.
most of us don't.
Yeah, I know
Most
now.
of us didn't.
Yeah, I know now.
And the thing is, even the
Mhm.
person that you thought had the most in life,
Yeah.
some of them still had to deal with trauma.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um, but what
Absolutely.
it taught, I think
Mhm.
the biggest thing that I learned is that everybody is important and everybody has value and worth. And it's not, we have to teach people and we have to show people that we can't allow people to take us to that place where we're empty, and understand that you can't pour from an empty cup.
At all. Not at
You,
all.
if your pot is empty, you can't pour anything into anybody else. So you start by pouring into yourself first, speaking goodness over your life, speaking peace over your life, speaking joy over your life. The biggest thing I had to learn to speak over my life was happiness
Okay. And so would
and
that be your seed of
contentment.
hope? Would that be your seed of hope for our listening audience today? 60
Yes.
seconds. 60 seconds. What you got for the people? Give them some hope.
Feed yourself hope, feed yourself joy, feed yourself trust. Trust somebody because there is somebody out there you can trust. And
Wow.
let that person be your rock that you can go to when life seems to be falling apart because you know that rock is going to help hold you up and become what we call my brother or my sister's keeper. We have to work as a society to become each other's brother and sister. Go back to family, go back to the village. and go back to teach people how to do the work.
Wow. Yolanda, I want to thank you truly for,
You're
first of all,
welcome.
striving with me with all of the technological issues in the beginning. But I mean, you just really blessed my heart today. I believe that I know. I always say I believe. I am convicted that someone that has heard your voice and heard your story today has found some hope, that they've been able to see through you that with God all things are possible. And there's some work we
Yes.
got to do, right? There is work that we have to do, y'all. We can't just sit by and just say, "Oh, I'm praying," because the Bible says faith without works is
It's
dead.
dead.
It's dead. So there are things that we are going to have to do as individuals, and then we pair it up with God, and He gives us the strength to be able to persevere and move through this thing successfully. And as Yolanda said, when you're looking at trauma and those bad things that have happened to you over your lifetime, and you're looking at whether or not you feel that you can or cannot go on, you can. Just one more day. One
One more
more.
day.
Listen. Go ahead.
When you feel like you slipping at your end of your rope, reach up and tie another little knot and pull yourself back up again.
Come on now. Pull
And
yourself up.
eventually you're going to get back up to the top of that rock.
Yep. Got to pull yourself up. That is the word that we
Got
are
to pull
going
yourself
to
up
end
and don't
on.
give up on you.
I love
Never
it.
give up on you.
I love that. I
Listen,
truly,
I've learned
truly
that I
love it.
can talk about my story. And listen, we didn't even go into the depth. We skimmed the surface of Yolanda.
Well, guess what? We might have to bring you back, Yolanda. And here is an announcement for our audience. What I am planning to do, and Yolanda, I hope you down for it. What I want to be able to do is have a panel of our first five guests and allow for our audience to come into the room and
And
begin
ask
to
those
ask you
questions.
questions and be able to get the strength for real that they really truly need. So, everyone, stay tuned. We are going to get that working. We want for you all not just to be, partakers through consumption, but we want you to be able to partake and be able to do the work. So, tonight we are going to wrap this thing up. We appreciate everyone for joining in on Conversations. We will be back next Thursday at 8 p.m. Hopefully, timely, God willing, that this technology doesn't do what it tried to pull on us tonight, but we will be
The
back.
devil's a liar.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. We was able to make this thing work. So, again, everyone, have a beautiful evening, and thank you for joining us on Conversations. My name is Leah MC. I am your host, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Do have a beautiful, beautiful evening.